Chapter 1. Calvin on the Christian Life, an Introduction. Howard Hageman wrote, "The spirituality of John Calvin is seldom examined. There are notable exceptions to this verdict by Hageman, yet it seems generally true that even those who consult Calvin on theological or exegetical questions may be inclined to look elsewhere for spiritual direction. I suspect that a principal reason for this oversight has to do with what we mean by spirituality." A different time. Once upon a time, daily rhythms were ordered by the tolling of the church bell, and the annual cycle punctuated by the church calendar. People passed into the church to mark life's milestones through rows of headstones. From baptisms to funerals, God's presence was felt at least tacitly across the whole of life. Faith was a shared public frame of reference, not a private hobby of those who, in the words of modern theologian Friedrich Schleiermacher, have a talent for religion or a taste for the infinite. God's hand was discerned in floods, fires, and plagues, as well as in fruitful harvests. Of course, there were plenty of people for whom this was all unreflective gibberish more than genuine belief. However, no one assumed a world in which religion or spirituality was a corner of private life. The Reformation and the heart of the matter. Whatever ways in which the Reformation anticipated the modern age, it belonged to the world shaped by Christendom. Especially for the Reformers and their successors, faith and reason, doctrine and life, sacred and secular, were on speaking terms. It is striking to us in our contemporary context to discover the same theologian writing a sermon or a lecture, a poem on nature or a hymn to nature's creator and redeemer, a Hebrew or Greek grammar, and some calculations on planetary movements in the same week. Truth, goodness, and beauty drew all disciplines together in a unified body of knowledge. No less when exploring the heavens than when poring over Scripture, one was engaging in pious meditation upon God's works. It is difficult to justify the claim that the Reformation brought unalloyed blessing, yet it is even more implausible to suggest, as some recent writers have, that it launched the drift toward secularism. First, by various measurements, it can be easily shown that late medieval Christendom was already coming apart at the seams. It was held together precariously but firmly by the vast network of magisterial power. Centuries of papal tyranny and abuses created widespread cynicism and provoked myriad reform movements. For a while, conciliarists, urging papal submission to councils, gained the upper hand, but papalists finally won out. An especially anxious moment came in the 14th century, when 3 popes claimed Peter's chair. Begun in 1309, the Western Schism, often called the Babylonian Captivity, was only concluded with the Council of Constance in 1417, a century before Luther posted his 95 Theses. In 1987, before becoming Pope Benedict XVI, Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger explained, "For nearly half a century, the Church was split into 2 or 3 obediences that excommunicated one another, so that every Catholic lived under excommunication by one pope or another, and, in the last analysis, no one could say with certainty which of the contenders had right on his side. The Church no longer offered certainty of salvation. She had become questionable in her whole objective form. The true Church, the true pledge of salvation, had to be sought outside the institution." At least, from the perspective of the Reformers, this was only the tip of the iceberg. Satires of the Roman Curia and the monks were common. Yet Reformers like Luther and Calvin went to the heart of the matter, the doctrine, and not just any doctrine, but the substance of the gospel message itself. However, as the word Reformation suggests, they did not set out to create a new church, nor did the movement become mired in mere critique. The aim was essentially constructive, namely, to re-evangelize Christendom.